All right, we're talking about hire smart people and get out of their way and why I don't like it. Here's my personal lesson as to why I think you need to become smart first. And so it has to do with finance. Finance is not my background, so it's not where I am naturally comfortable. I feel like books are really built more for the IRS than they are for running a business. And so I have a couple examples of where this went wrong. So it took me a couple times of figuring out that I really need to become smart before knowing somebody is smart. So the first step was when we first started a company, and again, I've been in business for about 15 years. When we first started a company, the books would be all over the place. So e-commerce financial is incredibly difficult. 1 month we're up 70 grand. Next month we're down 50 grand. Next month we're up 20 grand. It's just all over the place. And when I kept trying to dig into it, like, why is that's not it doesn't follow the bank account, it doesn't follow what's happening in the cash. First 2 years in business, I didn't take any pay, so I could see like how the cash was changing. And I was like, I don't trust it. It doesn't make any sense. And everybody's like, well, it's a timing issue. It's a timing issue. It's a timing issue. And I was like, oh, okay, well, super frustrating. So eventually I read 2 books on accounting. One book said, hey, this is like 4 or 5 years into business, there is accrual-based accounting and there is cash-based accounting. And I was like, never heard that before. I don't even know what that means. So cash-based accounting is doing the accounting based on when the transactions hit the bank account. So the transaction hits the bank account on November 1st, that's when it's recorded. If it hits it on October 30th, that's when it's recorded. And so accrual-based accounting smooths things out because let's say you have a year-long expense that you pay one time. So you have an annual subscription fee. So in January, you pay $12,000 for this subscription for 12 months. In cash-based, you'd hit the $12,000 in January, boom, right to the books. In accrual-based, you take that $12,000, you make it $1,000 in January, $1,000 in February, $1,000 in March, $1,000 in April. So that way it smooths it out. So that way your month-to-month expenses look more even. So when I learned about this accrual-based accounting, I also learned that in some states, in some businesses, some organizations, you actually legally may be required to do accrual-based accounting, especially at certain revenue numbers. And so I called my accountant and I say, are we doing cash-based or are we doing accrual-based? She goes, we're doing cash-based. And I said, should we be doing accrual-based? Like, I think we might legally have to. And she says, I'll get back to you. Next day she calls me up and she says, we need to switch to accrual-based. So I'm assuming that we had to be at accrual-based. Now, accrual-based accounting certainly helped. And so I became smart and I helped the accountant be smarter. Luckily, unfortunately, that's not where it ends. Later during COVID, with revenue was up, money was just all over the place. In COVID, there was a 13-month period where we lost $750,000, craziest time in my life. But when this was happening so quickly, I decided that books were just not good enough. So this timing issue was still an issue. Yes, we switched to accrual, but it just didn't trust it. And so I hired a fractional CFO to come in. And thought this guy knows what he's doing, he's smart, but at this point I've known enough to know that I need to test people. And so I ask him, I say, hey, look, you build these reports. So I hired him and a controller at the same time. I said, hey, you build these reports, but they just don't match what I'm seeing. When I look at the cash, it doesn't change the same way you say it's changing. And he goes, well, this is the reports I get. This is the data I have. And I said, well, where does that data come from? He goes, well, the controller does it. And I was like, well, where does the controller get it? And this is nail in the coffin for me, guys. We CFOs rely on the controller to get into it. We think more high level. I fired him. Gone. Executives have to get into the weeds. They have to. You think you're high level? Devil is in the details. Get into the weeds. Every leader needs to learn to unpack, and get into the weeds. If they don't, They have no idea what's going on. I interviewed another fractional CFO. She says, I'm a bear. I will get in there. For sure. She was a bear and she got in there. And she dug and she dug and she uncovered rocks, dug up roots, got right down to the nuts and bolts of it, set up our finances in the right way. And then, yes, working with a controller, that controller eventually became our VP of Finance. The VP of Finance now does a lot of that work, but she got in there to make sure he was doing the right work. Make sure your executives, your smart people can get into it, get into the weeds.